Have you ever felt like God was calling you to something more? Maybe you've sensed a nudge, a stirring that you can't quite put into words. That's what this podcast is all about. Here we share the story of God doing something new and powerful right here in Morehead, Kentucky. I'm Eli, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. In just a few minutes, you'll also hear from my friend Dylan Bjorklund, a minister, husband, father, and now church planter. He's stepping out in faith to follow God's call, and I think his story is going to inspire you. Before we jump in, I want to encourage you with these powerful words from Ephesians 3:20-21. Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us, to him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations forever and ever. As you listen today, I want you to ask yourself, what might God want to do through you? You can do more than you imagine by his power for his glory. And maybe, just maybe, this episode will help you take that next step of obedience. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. All right, we are back for another episode of the Morecast. Dylan, how's it going?
Going great.
One of the things that you mentioned in our last episode, the big change in your life, big addition with baby Emma coming.
Yeah.
So now you are a husband, a father of two little girls.
Yeah.
How old is your oldest again? 2?
She's 18 months.
18 months. So two little girls. Yeah.
Yes. 2 under 2.
2 under 2. Nice.
Yep.
So I want to talk a little bit about the balance of leading in a church, especially a new movement, and leading your family. Any man who cares about the Lord and cares about his family knows that this is not easy. It's a challenge. Even the Apostle Paul knew it was a challenge when he's writing in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 about the gift of singleness and I don't think he would say a curse of marriage, but the reality of divided loyalties, divided attention at times.
Yep.
So I want to talk a little bit about that in this episode. So how has the transition been for you going from senior ministry in an established church? I think you've mentioned in the past it's a church you could have been until you retired, right?
Yeah.
And instead jumping into church planting, how has that been for you and your family specifically?
I think that is a really important question. And if anyone is ever considering church planting, making sure your family is on board, making sure you have done as Jesus said in the parable, like counted up the cost of what it takes to build something right before you do it. Like those things are very, very important. And I'm just going to say, Eli, that the truth is the Lord has been very gracious to us and blessed us. It is the transition. Now, granted, we're fairly new in it, right? We're only a few months deep into it, but the transition has actually not been that hard. Like when I think about financially, that usually would be the first stress and burden. And although we are raising support for our efforts, and part of that support would be my salary, the church planting org that we're working with is giving me a portion of a salary until I'm able to be fully funded. So I say that because I'm thinking in a situation, if a guy's going to go and do this, family's going to go and do this, they may not have that same portion of opportunity. So that may be a level of stress and a hardness in a relationship, in a marriage for your family. There are other guys who they decide to go bivocationally to plant a church, and that can add stress and complications, right? Because now I've got this 9-to-5 job, if you will, tent making job, and then I'm doing all the work for church planting in the evenings, and whatever, it's long, all those kinds of things. So So honestly, right now, I would say it's not been a huge change. In fact, in many ways, it's allowed me to spend more time with my family. Now, that's probably only true here in this very early stage where I would say we're in the infancy of the church plant,
Yeah.
because we've not started really meeting with people. We've not met on Sunday morning, so it's a lot of the administrative stuff. It's me traveling to go and speak at places and all that. So my schedule's very flexible. In fact, with Emma being born, I've been able to be here, and spend a lot of time here at home. I don't have a church office that I'm going to anymore, so my office is the spare bedroom, and so if Cassie were to need something and I'm in the middle of something, like, it's no more Dad's over at the office. It's yeah, I can jump out of the room and help. So in some ways it's been a blessing, but we're very fortunate. The Lord's just been very gracious to us. Um, I will also say it is a huge challenge, and Cassie and I have spent time praying for the Lord's protection over our marriage, over our family, because certainly this is a risk, and I think anytime you do something serious for the kingdom and really get on mission, you are more susceptible to Satan. I think
Yeah.
those are the types of people he wants to target. And so we've really have been diligent in praying for protection over our family, our kids, both of our girls, over our marriage. And so, uh, and he's been gracious to us so far in that. And the other thing is, let me say this, because it somewhat relates, but I'll tie it into relate. When I was discerning whether to church plant, I had a lot of church planters say it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard. Um, and and at one point I was like, okay, is that just the thing you say when you planted a church?
Yeah.
Because finally I was like, tell me what the hard is, right? Like, tell me what the hard is. And so the guy began to describe some of the things. And another guy I was telling later, who had also planted a church, where I was just growing frustrated. It was like, and he said, here's the reality, Dylan. If you have done ministry right, ministry is hard. When you start planting a church, there are going to be challenges that are different, but it's still there. Like, anybody in ministry is doing it right knows that it's some cost to your family.
Yeah.
Like, there are nights that you're just not there, right? For the next 6 Mondays, I'm out. I'm gone away from home, and in many cases traveling a couple hours. For the next 5 Sundays, we're traveling somewhere. But I take the Monday nights, right? I'm not home with family because I'm traveling somewhere. Well, if you're in ministry, like, and you're doing ministry right, there are always those things, right? Those hospital calls, those things that, those visitations that you're at, or whatever it might be. So that time away from that, and my wife totally understands that and knows that. She's a preacher's daughter, so she grew up with that. And before we got married, she knew about that. And my wife said, she's just a champion. She was made to be a minister's wife. She's incredible for that reason. So that's why I said not a ton has changed on that front. But here's what I think the biggest challenge has been, and we've not fully felt it yet. We've just begun to feel it, and that is not having the community of a church, established church.
Yeah.
Now, if we had a launch team with us, or if we had a group of people who were going with us to Morehead, I don't think we would fill this. And there are some guys who plant churches that's what they're going with people. A couple other families, or maybe a whole group from a church is leaving one church to go and start another one. It's just Cassie and I, and it's down to something simple. I know, just last night, Eli, we were talking over the phone before this. You were talking about dedicating your daughter, right, as part of your church. We dedicated Eliza. It was very special to us, important. And Cassie and I came to the realization, it's just like, well, where are we going to dedicate Emma? We try to do that, within the first year, but the reality is It may be late fall before we start meeting on a Sunday morning, and we're probably not going to dedicate her on that first Sunday morning. There's probably some other important things. Now, I'm not saying like, and dedication is not this thing you have to do, it's or anything, but it's right. It's part of um, just special thing for us and for
Well,
our family. You
and for
know.
us, it was, us dedicating our daughter and our parenting to the Lord, but also the church coming around us to encourage us and pray for us and hold us accountable. And some of those people in the room are going to be our daughter's Sunday school teacher, right? And so right now you don't have any of that.
Exactly. That's exactly it, right? And it's so many of those things. I mean, down to, the small things. We're geared up for Easter and Cassie's like, but there's not going to be a church Easter egg hunt to go to for the kids. And
Yeah.
it is small and it's silly, but that's because we love the community. We love the people, and it's not about the Easter. It's being around other families who you're raising your kids with, and we know that will come. We know that will come. That's part of what. But it's just like in this time of waiting. So I think that's like the probably the most challenging thing, and the biggest change is maybe that sense of loneliness a little bit. But it will come. We know the Lord will bring people.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too, an emphasis for ministers today um, to strike that ministry family balance, right? I think it's probably a culture shift in general. There's a greater awareness to the importance of a husband, father's role in the home, right? If you're just out earning a paycheck and considering that to be your contribution to your family, your family's going to suffer, right? There's more to it. I have felt as I listened to many generations of ministers, as time is progressing, there's this shift, giving ministers more permission, I guess maybe is the right word, to strike that proper balance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that, balancing the responsibilities of leading ministry and leading your family, and kind of where you see some of those lines being drawn, I guess, if you will?
Let me just share a personal story, and that I think will set this up a little bit. When I met the church planting organization that we're working with, Be One Make One, at a conference, and was telling them about what I was planning on doing, I, for whatever reason, I have no idea, but I became very open and vulnerable with them very quickly, and I told them the one thing that I refuse to lose in doing this is my family. And my mom was married to my dad, and he walked out when I was 2 years old, and my mom was pregnant with my sister at the time, so she raised three kids on her own. And so a father and a husband that is present and involved in the life is not only a biblical conviction of mine, because that's how God designed. It is a very close to home felt need. I refuse to do that. And I heard someone say this. This may be cliche, but it bears repeating. Is the church is not your bride. The church is Christ's bride. You already have your own, or you've seen in the work world, right? You can be replaced at work. You cannot be replaced at home.
Yeah.
And so I've been very fortunate in every ministry that I've been in, and probably because I was just had the wherewithals in the process to make sure I was not stepping into a place that was going to put undue pressure to put church over home. So been very, very gracious. Every ministry I've been in, you talk about that balance that have allowed that. In fact, at Christview, it's not like they were like wait a minute, you weren't at the office this morning at 9 a.m. Where were you?
Right, right.
Whatever. There was never any of that, and any time it was needing to take time for my family. I say that related to family. It has to be a priority, and you have to make time for it. But here's the other reality: ministry requires extra time, and so this where I just think I have the best wife for this
Uh,
is because Cassie understands that and knows that it is part of the sacrifice, that
uh,
there are going to be dinners that I'm not able to sit down and have with them, that there are going to be times where I don't get to put the girls to bed at night, right? Whatever it is, or to be there for things. I'm going to be there as much for much of as possible, and I'm not going to make excuses for, it's like, oh, I got to be at this thing. It's like, no, somebody
right.
else can do that, right? Um, so that's what I said. Prioritizing the families is huge, and it also is, if nothing else, then it is as men who follow Christ, it's our duty and responsibility. Now, here's the other thing about my personality: is I'm a workaholic. I love, and I could spend. In fact, before I was married, I mean, I could spend all night, right? Like way up into the hours of the morning. That's why Paul talks about the benefit of singleness when it comes to ministry, right? You don't have that
Mm,
other loyalty that to that. And so I do have to watch myself a little bit in that. Here's where the balance I think comes in. It's just trying to figure out am I going to take on?
mm,
What extra thing? I do. This is a personal conviction. I'm not saying it's true for everybody or whatever it is. I think like if we just put some numbers to this, right? Like I think a minister should be working more than 40 hours a week if
mm,
he's full time. And here's the reason why: because everybody in the work industry works 40 hours a week. So if
yep.
you say, well, I work my 40 hours a week this week, everybody works that, but you're asking them to be there on Sunday, Sunday night, Sunday
Mhm.
school, be a part of small
Mhm.
group, to volunteer, like all these things. So you need to show that, right?
Right.
So maybe 60 is a lot, but sometimes I don't know. That number's always been the one in my head,
Mhm.
right? You got to figure it out, whatever it is for you. But that's just been, and that's been the tone I've even, Cassie and I have talked about. It's just like, this is kind of what ministry demands. Now, there's certain weeks where 60 hours is not, don't put that in because there's not the need or whatever.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes you say yes to things in ministry that you don't need to say yes to.
Mm,
And you are doing it. And a lot of times it happens in ministry, you're doing it because you avoid being at home with your family.
mm,
Uh, there are other times you say yes to things in ministry because it moves the mission forward and someone else can do it. You don't have to be the person that does it. And then, so I think the balance is figuring out what are the things that only you can do that no one else can,
mm,
and figuring out what those are, and committing to those, being willing to say no to things. Here's the other thing too, and I talked to someone about this one time. It's what would I be doing if I was not the paid minister on staff here?
yeah.
What would I still be doing?
Mhm.
Um, and whatever that is, maybe those are things that, that I'm going to, be a part of. So like a discipleship group that I have,
Mm,
that I'm leading. Nobody at the church has asked me to do that, right? Like, no, that's not, it's taken time away from my family.
right.
But I'm going to tell you, even if I wasn't the paid minister on staff, I'd be a part of that, right? So,
Yep.
so I think those are some ways. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I think those are some ways, tangible ways, maybe you can begin to figure out how to have that balance. And then the
Mhm.
church planning world is very, very hard. I think because that question of, hey, what is it that someone else can do,
Mhm.
and I don't have to do it. Oh, on the church planning world, guess what? Someone
There's
else
no one
could
else.
do this. Someone else could do this, but there's no one else there to do this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you do have to do it. So there is going to be some more of that. But this is why I think probably the preacher, the minister, church planner should focus primarily on two things. That is preaching, teaching, and developing people,
Mhm.
and building those relationships. And I didn't come up with that because I'm some creative leadership guy. I just went back to the scriptures, Ephesians 4, which says that
Mm,
Christ gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, pastor, teacher to equip the people for works of service.
yep.
So To get things off your plate, you got to raise up people to do the work.
Yeah.
So spending that time early on.
That's awesome. I love what you said earlier. Not the church is not your bride; it is Christ's bride. I think that probably could be the downfall of a lot of ministers, whether they're torpedoing their family or their ministry. When you start thinking that your relationship to the church is more than what it is actually is, right? That as the lead pastor, senior minister, whatever, like it is your church. That goes against the scriptures that tell us to not to think more highly than we ought, because the reality is it is Christ's church, right? You're stewarded, and really the paid staff, the senior minister, whatever, is no more important than any other member in the church. It's just a role, you know. But we live in this culture where it is so easy to glorify the people on the platform, and it is so easy, if you want to be the person who's glorified, to build yourself a platform, and that's not what is conducive to healthy ministers and healthy families. Thanks for watching and listening to this episode of the Morecast. We hope you'll join us again for future conversations. We invite you to pray for the church plant and the people of Morehead. Your prayers mean more than you know. If you'd like to connect with Dylan or learn more about the church plant, don't hesitate to reach out. He'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and be blessed.